This is an overview of chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita deal primarily with Karma Yoga. The middle 6 chapters deal with Bhakti Yoga. And then we have the last 6 chapters, they deal with Jnana Yoga. Krishna has explained in chapter 6 that the yogi who is most intimately united with him is always thinking of him, of Krishna, within his heart. Now the 7th chapter explains how one can become such a Krishna conscious person. In the beginning, one takes the association of devotees, which leads to understanding one's constitutional position as servant of Krishna. By engaging in devotional service, one gains determined faith, Dhrida Vrata, and becomes convinced that simply by such service all his goals will be fulfilled or will be achieved. So let us look now at the sections of the chapter 7, verses 1 to 7. One can know Krishna in full by hearing about him. So Krishna explains how to attain this high state of consciousness. Krishna tells Arjuna to hear with his mind attached to him as he explains knowledge of himself in verses 1 to 3. He first explained how he is the origin of everything, both material and spiritual. Then in verses 8 to 12, what is described is knowing Krishna as the source of both material and spiritual energies. Krishna describes how he is the essence of everything in verses 8 to 12. If Krishna is the origin and essence of everything, as explained in texts 4 to 12, why do some people not recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Then in verses 8 to 12, in verses 13 and 14, it is described that the 3 modes are under Krishna's control, and therefore the recommendation is to surrender to him, to surrender to Krishna, who is the controller of the 3 modes of nature. Because we are controlled by the 3 modes, actually, and Krishna is the controller of the 3 modes, controller of the 3 modes of nature. Verses 13 and 14 explain how the living entities are deluded and controlled by the 3 modes, but are able to go beyond them by surrendering to Krishna, since he is the controller of the modes. In verses 15 to 19, there is a description of 4 kinds of impious persons who do not surrender to Krishna, and 4 kinds of pious persons who surrender to Krishna. Liberation from the laws of material nature has been sought by the leaders of mankind with great plans and perseverance for many years. If such liberation is attained by surrendering to Krishna, why don't they adopt this method? Verse 15 describes 4 types of unqualified persons who do not surrender to Krishna and who sometimes pose themselves as leaders simply for material gain. Verses 16 to 19 describe 4 types of persons who surrender to Krishna, and how the wise man is the best because he does not desire some gain. He is just looking for knowledge. The next section, verses 20 to 25, demigod worshippers and impersonalists whose surrender is misplaced. So this is described. Verses 20 to 23 describe less intelligent persons who worship demigods for material gain. Verses 24 to 25 describe the impersonalists who surrender to the formless aspect of Krishna. They cannot see Krishna, who covers himself from their vision. Then the next section, verses 26 to 30, the bewilderment of the living entity and his freedom through knowledge of Krishna. So this section describes this. Krishna knows all and is thus different from the foolish living entities who are born into delusion and are bewildered by the dualities arising from desire and hate. So when we have desire, we have hate in our heart, then everything we see is seen through the eyes of dualities. Good and bad, black and white, high and low, etc., etc. These are all material conceptions. However, pious persons, freed from dualities arising from delusion, engage in devotional service with determination, and through this devotional service attain liberation. They have knowledge of Krishna as Adibhuta, Adidaiva, and Adiyagya. And these terms you need to read in the purports. They are explained, these Sanskrit terms. So this 7th chapter is little technical, little philosophical, but by carefully reading several times, I'm sure that it can be understood. So this is the overview of chapter 7.